If you're searching for homes on Zillow right now, you're probably not seeing the full picture. And depending on when you're watching this video, you might be missing thousands of listings. My name is Tony Angelos. I'm a Chicagoland real estate broker. I'm the lead broker with the Captivate Real Estate Group. We are one of the largest teams at the second largest brokerage in the entire country. And I have been watching what's been happening with Zillow unfold for months. So in this video today, I'm going to break down the entire timeline, what's happening, why it matters, and what you, the consumer, can do about it. So if you log down to Zillow and you're like, where the heck are all the listings, and you're in the Chicagoland area, let me explain what's going on. Right now, there is a huge feud going on between MRED, which is the Midwest Real Estate Data. It's our MLS. It's the MLS that covers all of Chicagoland, and Zillow. And this story goes back way before just 2 days ago, where Zillow and MRED got into it. And I'm going to explain the whole timeline. This is actually a story about Compass versus Zillow. So one thing that I've learned is that a lot of people who don't really follow the real estate industry too much, they think that listings are just put on Zillow. Like, we just put listings on Zillow, but that's not really what happens. What actually happens is that we put listings into the MLS, Midwest Real Estate Data, and those listings are sent out to all the other public portals. So you have Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com and Homes.com and all the random brokerage websites. The listings that are put into the MLS are sent to those sites. So the MLS is actually the source of truth. It's kind of like a big database. And when we have a listing, we put it into the MLS with all the little data points about the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the features, the what's included, the what's not included, all that stuff. And that's sent out to those public portals, which is a more consumer-friendly way to consume that listing. So when MRED cuts off that portal pretty much goes dark. Now, around the country, there are hundreds of MLSs, all for different local communities. MRED is one of the largest. So I said this fight is actually about Compass. So let me backtrack a little bit and how Compass comes into this. About 2 years ago, in 2024, Compass came out with what they call private exclusives. And these are exactly what they sound like. They are private exclusive listings to Compass. Now, Compass, they're the largest brokerage in the world. They own plenty of different brands that you may be familiar with, like Keller Williams and Century 21 and all those other, what appear to be mom and pop brokerages are oftentimes owned by Compass. Now, Zillow did not like the private exclusives, and they didn't like it so much that they created a rule that said if a property was advertised anywhere and not on the MLS within 1 day, it would never be shown on Zillow. Compass didn't like that, and they sued Zillow, and they lost. And Zillow said, nope, if you don't put your properties on the MLS within 1 day, we're never, ever going to show it. So Compass didn't back down. They continued on with their private exclusives. And they decided to come to Chicago because MRED has its own version of private listings. We call them the Private Listings Network, the PLN. So if you're working with an agent, you've probably heard us talk about the PLN. A lot of stuff happens on the PLN. And quite frankly, there are a lot of reasons why a seller would want their homes to be privately listed. There's plenty of reasons why somebody would not want their home blasted everywhere. So we have had our PLN since 2016, and Compass has known this. So we've been able to get around this because our PLN is actually part of the MLS. We put our properties on the PLN, and it's kind of like our version of a coming soon. Brokers can access them, brokers can see them, and if you're working with a broker, you have access to the PLN also. So Compass comes to MRED and says, we will send you our private exclusive listings that are not on Zillow in exchange for you taking our side. If you go to war with us against Zillow, you could have our entire feed. So MRED, they threatened to cut Zillow's access if they did not show all the private listings. Zillow said no, and on May 20th, MRED cut the feed. So within hours, if you were browsing for homes on Zillow in the Chicagoland area, you went from seeing thousands of units to probably just hundreds. So who's right and who's wrong in this? Now, there are two sides to this story. Side one is the private listings. Are they good? Are they beneficial to consumers? And side two is there's money at stake here. So let's first talk about Zillow. A lot of people do not understand how Zillow makes money, so allow me to explain. When you go on Zillow and you look at a listing and you hit request a tour, that is sent to a random agent, and if that agent successfully closes a transaction with you, they owe Zillow a 40% referral fee. It's pretty steep. It's pretty lucrative. So every listing that's not on Zillow is one opportunity for them to not make money. That obviously matters to them. But what they did was they cited a study that they had done that said that private listings are almost disproportionately in predominantly white neighborhoods. And they're saying that this is an equity issue. They're saying that if you're only going to be showing these private listings in white neighborhoods, well then not everyone is going to have the access to it. Personally, I don't think that argument stands very well because any realtor can go on the private listing network. And anyone working with a realtor can access the private listing network. So frankly, I think it's a pretty weak argument that is veiled in equality, but really they just want their money. And frankly, higher price points are going to get them higher referral fees. So let's just call a spade a spade. They want the money. Now, the issue too is there are private listings. There is an argument to be made that private listings hurt consumers because they're not being exposed to the full market. There have been a lot of people trying to make that argument. I don't know if I agree with it. There's this idea that if you want the most amount of money, then you need to present it to the most amount of people. I think that is true to an extent, but there's a scarcity factor in it. There's an exclusivity factor in it. And to be fair, Compass did this study on their own private listings. So it's kind of like somebody grading their own homework and saying they got an A, but they found that private listings actually sold for more. And I don't know if I disagree with that because oftentimes when we put something on the private market, we're doing it to test a price. We want to see how the market responds to a certain price. And it's usually just a little bit higher than what we think it should be priced at. And then if we put it on there and it doesn't perform well, when we go on the public market, then we can just reduce the price a little bit, performs more in line with market expectations. So that's that. And at the end of the day, both Compass and Zillow are multi-billion-dollar organizations who are fighting for your eyeballs. So it doesn't really matter whether you're on Zillow or you're on Redfin or you're on Compass's website or eXp Realty's website. It doesn't matter. It's all the same data coming out of the MLS. What really matters is where you're getting the data from. So here's the solution. Now, if you're in Chicago, you probably already know about this. We, as realtors, oftentimes use an app called Zenlist. Zenlist integrates directly into the MLS. It's not an algorithm-driven platform. It's an invite-only platform that you have to have a specific code for from a realtor, and it'll give you direct access to the MLS. Public listings, private listings, anything that's been input into the MLS, you would be able to see it as a consumer. This is the website that most realtors will use to share properties with their clients. Like I said, this is not algorithm driven. This is not trying to get you to click on things to sell you ad space, to collect your data, stuff like that. It is just a direct line into the MLS. So if you actually want my code, you can click it down in the description. You're gonna have to request access, so give me some time and I'll provide that access to you. And if you want to talk about your home search, your budget, your timeline, neighborhoods, whatever you want to talk about, myself and my team would love to have a conversation with you. We work with clients all over the Chicagoland area. So if you want to have a conversation about your move, please reach out. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Right now in Chicago, real estate is moving very, very quickly. So if you want to have an edge and if you don't want to be falling behind to lackluster data or incomplete data, or while all these big public portals that are backed by private equity and billions of dollars are trying to have a pissing contest with each other, just do what everyone else is doing. Get onto Zenlist so that you have that unfiltered access to the MLS and you could see things immediately as they become available. Zenlist is refreshed every 2 minutes, and this is not by any means a plug for Zenlist. Like I said, it's just what most realtors use because it's the cleanest, most efficient way to share properties with clients. So here's what I want you to do. Like I said, I have my own Zenlist link. I set this up. It's down below in the description. So you just click on that link, click request work with me, and I will give you access to every listing in the Chicagoland area, both public and private. The link is below. Like I said, it takes 2 minutes to set up. If you found this helpful, please hit the subscribe button. And if you're not following me on Instagram, consider following me there. I post about this stuff a lot more. I will see you on the next video. Take care.